welcome to the PPM Playbook Podcast. I'm your host, Laura Watts, and for each episode, I will be talking to a guest to unpick the complexities of running effective programmes and portfolios of work. My company, Verto, is a veteran in this space, having supplied a programme management solution to public sector organisations since 2008. So without further ado, let's get started. Right, well, hello again. We are back in the studio in West London to talk about a few developments, internal developments that are happening within Verto for our customers. And I'm joined today by the client experience team, some of the client experience team. So Simon Hall, you are the Chief Client Officer at Verto. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Again,
yeah, I can't keep me away.
Well, we're not a huge team, so I do expect you to come back again and again, actually.
I live to serve.
Fantastic. That's good to know. That's really good to know. And Natasha Osborne. Natasha, you are Head of Client Success at Verto. And again, your second time round as well. Second time today, in fact. So welcome again.
Thank you again for having me.
So it's... Well, I think what we're going to start off talking about is the very newly formed client maturity model that you guys have been working furiously hard on recently. And I just wondered if you could give me a bit of background on why you thought this was important to develop, how it's going to impact our clients in a positive way.
Okay, I shall start.
Yes.
If happy for me to do so. So I think a lot of what we're trying to do with the client success team is produce measurable and tangible outcomes for the clients. And some of that is, established up front, but everybody that's come to us says, I want to become more mature in our project management. That's just part of what they want to do. So having an assessment means it's something you can measure, and then we can progress it. So what we're essentially asking the clients to do is say, well, there's a series of questions. Where do you feel like you are right now? Where do you want to get to? What's the timeline for that? And then it becomes something that we can sort of reassess regularly with the clients. So it's really important for us that the clients know that we're with them on this journey. It's not just here's the software, good luck, see you later. And it's an integral part of what Tasha's team does is keep that communication going. And hopefully it's a positive message we can play back to the clients every 6 months, every year, or how often they want to do it. Okay, you were here, we've worked on this, and now you are here. What's next, and how do we go from there?
And Tasha, where do you fit this in to the implementation journey, or
It's going to be really important. So you're going to see the client maturity model being used throughout your whole journey with Verto. So essentially we'll do an initial kind of assessment to see this is where we think we are right now. We can handhold clients through that as well. There's a lot of supporting guidance of how to fill out the assessment. It's pretty straightforward, but we've given some guidance and some things on how we think that you should look at it. And then we're going to use that to help you set your strategic goals. So, this is where you are in project management maturity right now, or, RAID management or financial management. And this is where you'd like to get to.
Yeah.
And we can work with you to go, right, well, to get there, what do you need to do? What does success in that area look like for you? And we can then set those goals and monitor them and make sure that Verto is there to support you in pulling that together. And we can then, as Simon was saying, revisit, reassess all the time. It's always about continuous improvement. We never want it to stay stagnant. It's project delivery, it's change management. Things should be constantly evolving, and we absolutely want to make sure that you've got the tools in place evolving with you to support you in those processes.
So it's like a self-serve sort of mechanism, isn't it, for the clients to say themselves, this is where we think we are. Do they have that conversation with themselves and with you right at the start?
It's fair to say, especially with new clients, because we can do this with existing clients as well, but it's easier to explain it in the context of a new client. They will have done some soul searching before they even approach us, because they essentially come to us because they need a better way of doing what they're doing, and they identify that a system is going to help them with that, the tool and everything around it. So there will have been a certain amount of soul searching before they get to there, and what we're asking them to do is say, okay, let's commit that to paper. We find quite often that they haven't done as much kind of soul searching as potentially they need to, or I try and identify it in multiple areas. So just saying, okay, we've recognised we need to get a bit better at project management. That's great. It's a really good thing to want to do, but then we want to kind of push that and say, well, what does that actually mean? How are you actually going to define that? And so that's when the assessment can start. So ideally, the assessment starts right at the sales phase. So the sales team are saying to the clients, well, okay, you've identified you want to grow. What areas do you want to grow? How do we help you with that? And then that's fleshed out in much more detail, once Tasha's team gets hold of the clients and works through it with them. And in terms of how often you want to assess, I think annual is probable, because these kind of changes don't happen quickly.
Absolutely.
Putting the system in, making sure everybody understands it. And a big part of what we talk about all the time now is the change management piece. And to get better at project management, it's not just putting a tool in, we need to know what the tool's for, how does it help us? And it all sounds fairly simple, but it just takes time. It's identify the problem, work out how you're going to work on it to make it better, record where you are now, and then what are the measurable steps going forward. And it's a kind of 4-step process, as we call it. There's kind of developing, good, better, and best. So you kind of score yourself where you feel like you are, but you're not going to jump from developing to best. You're going to slowly work through this. And as Tasha said, the continuous improvement is the key part. So as long as we're edging slowly toward best, that's great. You know, it's not going to happen overnight. Some things you might go quicker than others, but you can assess as often as you feel is appropriate.
It sounds like a really nice way to formalise this, because you said, the client will have done that soul searching piece at the beginning and have an idea of what they want to achieve through Verto, but what you've done with this maturity model is actually structured it so that they can see it. And Tasha, you mentioned earlier about RAID and financial project management. What other buckets have you got? How else can people assess themselves? In what other areas? And how have you sort of structured that?
I'm going to try and remember all of them. So,
well, how many are there?
We've set it up around 10 key themes. So essentially, what we've suggested, we're trying to keep it simple. We don't want this to be a 150-page document that you need to complete. We want it to be useful, productive, something that you can look back on and go, actually, that's nice and and straightforward. So there are 10 key themes, obviously around project, program, portfolio management. Where we understand that you're managing not just projects but programs, portfolios of work. So we're looking across that spectrum, and how mature are your processes, and alongside that, how mature are your project staff? Because as we know, a lot of our clients have a lot of accidental project managers who perhaps haven't had all the necessary formal training, or are possibly looking at managing 2 different jobs at once. So they're doing change management, they're doing delivery, they're project managers, but they're also doing a day job alongside that. So it's understanding, you might have really great processes in place. Do you have the project professionals in place to deliver that as well? Things like RAID management we talked about, so risks, issues, assumptions, dependency management. How mature are you? Are you only looking at risk management right now? Are you hoping to start looking at risk and issue management across a portfolio rather than just risk management in just individual projects? So there's lots of different things. There's financial management, resourcing, performance management, benefits. So it's all key themes that everyone will be familiar with. Everyone will have an idea of where they are now, and some goalposts of where they'd like to get to. And when we link the strategic goals to each of those key themes, it allows us to understand where your priorities are in terms of where you want to start focusing first. For some organizations, it's going to be absolutely, we want to focus on just getting the basics in place, getting our RAID management, our planning in place. For others, it may be, we're pretty good at that already. We need to actually resource it all a bit better. So it allows us to help understand how to build the tool in the best way for you to start with. And we can then measure, as Simon was talking about, we're setting a baseline, and we can then create the measurable targets, and we can come back and say, are we achieving that? Is there any areas where we haven't quite got there and we need to do something to push us over the line? Or, we've absolutely smashed that one. where do you want to get to next?
Yeah.
And it's about that continuous self-assessment and then continuous improvement with the tool.
And just to jump in, I'd say
Yeah.
the prioritization is a really important thing, because tool does so many things and there's limitless potential almost, but you know, we have to set expectations with the clients on, okay, you're not going to be able to change everything all at once, or, you know, it's going to be too much change fatigue for the staff. You know, let's put a sensible plan together that helps you, you know, push forward in the key areas that work for you, but you can't hit all 10 in month one. You know, let's see where we get to on it. So having that conversation, I think, up front really helps.
Yeah.
And I think what we're trying to do all the way through is let the clients know we care about your progress. That's a key part of this for us. It's like we want to see it progress. That's where we get a lot of the joy from our jobs, is taking a client that gets help, I'm struggling with this, and we can move forward and say, look how much better you are. There's always room to maneuver and room to progress, but just look back where you were, look where you are now, and look where you're going to go. And I think that's a really important part of the job for all of us. You know, we love the people and we want to see them progress, and we want to solve those problems, and being able to show a tangible benefit. And you know, as Tasha said, you've got a baseline and you've moved beyond it to something much better. You know, that's a really good outcome for us.
Yeah. I was going to ask something a bit controversial now that we have not planned, but do you ever find that because the buying pool of people is increasingly getting larger and larger, and the person that might have come to you in the first place, come to us at Verto in the first place and said, you know, help, we need some better processes and better structure for our program delivery. Do you ever find that when you get to the team that you're eventually working with, maybe their idea of where they are in terms of maturity somewhat differs? And what if you're not expecting that, and you know, you get a different story from the person who sold Verto in the first place? Is there any kind of client management that you have to go through if they maybe score themselves as excellent here? Has that been considered? How would you manage that as a team?
I think one of the key things we've got to think about is the client is not a single individual. We can often talk about the client as an entity, but we're dealing with multiple individuals with different roles and things like that. So we kind of break them down a little bit by the kind of the stakeholders, the strategic leads, so the people that are, you know, they're not necessarily involved in the day-to-day build of the system and what's going on, but they've got the vision for why it needs to be there. And then there's the day-to-day people that we work with as well. So there's no harm in asking both to fill it in and then cross-referencing them and seeing where we end up. And you need a baseline across the whole client. So if they're in disagreement, we will workshop that and get them to a place. And I think we'd always kind of probably revise down, because if you're like, well, I don't think we're that far ahead. Well, I think we are that far ahead. You're probably not that far ahead. But it's up to the client. You know, we're there to help them, and they can decide. And actually having a healthy debate on where they think they are is quite interesting.
Yeah.
What I thought you were going to ask, which I might just jump in while I've thought of it, is what happens when the person that buys it and sets it all there moves on? Because that can happen as well, because a lot of the Verto implementations are multi-year. But this helps us with that, because a new person coming in, we say, well, okay, I didn't buy the software. What are we doing with it? We can evidence, well, here's what it was bought for. Here's where you were when we started. Here's where you're at now. And this is the journey we're on. Is that still the right journey? Is that the journey as you see it? And do we need to change it?
Yeah.
So it enables us to have much better conversations with those strategic leads, rather than just being in the weeds of, you know, building the system and what fields you've got and all that kind of thing. So it allows us to be much more strategic and support the clients in that.
Yeah.
And I just would jump back to the first question you asked, actually, just to say as well that that's absolutely the role of your client success manager, is to come in and support, you know, you as an organization in understanding where you are. So if you know, in the sales process, the sales team has sat down with you and you've had an initial go, when it comes to the client success team and we're talking about your strategic goals, because don't forget, we're going to be setting measurable targets against this maturity assessment, that's when it's going to come out. So we're absolutely there to help facilitate those conversations. As Simon was saying, workshopping them, and just helping to manage, you know, and there are often differences between what, you know, a senior leadership team and the people on the ground think, and we're there to help understand, the organisation understand, you know, what are the priorities, you know, from both sides, and then work from there.
Yeah. And you've mentioned, you offer guidance, and obviously you've explained that really, really well. You said that the measures are, what is it? Good.
Developing,
good,
better, best. So they're all positive terms.
Best.
We don't get to say we are really bad at this,
That's
even
great.
though that might be the subtext behind it. So the worst you can be is developing, which means you've got work to do, and that's fine.
And is there further guidance on what that means?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
that's all built into it. So the initial assessment is really plain language, and it describes the state that might best match you. So it's not like a blank document that says explain where you are. Developing says here's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Better would be, okay, you're doing a bit better, and this is what it looks like.
Yes,
all
exactly.
that kind of thing.
Yeah,
so
this is what it looks like.
It's going to work.
And I suppose that then further helps to sort of maintain a bit of consistency throughout that sales process, moving into the CS process. And
absolutely
beyond.
that. And it helps Tasha's team with the dialogue. So if they're not sure, okay. And if they're not sure between themselves, okay. But what the really positive part is, it's making the client think about it. It's promoting that they need to have a discussion on it, and it gives Tasha the chance to sort of build a tangible goal out of it. Because that's really what we're trying to do here, is say, okay, what does success look like? Yeah. And this really helps with that. Yeah.
I mean, I think it sounds like a really solid and structured step forward. And for our clients, it must feel hugely comforting that there's a team, right there that, like you say, are not just going to go, you've bought the system, thank you, bye-bye, on to the next. But actually you're there to support and ensure that Verto consistently works and hard at progressing you and developing your team. It feeds into so many elements for the client, like training, support, education around, project management as a whole. So it must feel absolutely wonderful for your clients to know that there's that support in place.
Yeah, I think what it does, and because this can be a really challenging thing to do, you go out there with requirements to purchase, project management software. You know the detail of what you want it to do. We need to be able to record risks. We need to be able to record issues. We need to be able to plan. What sometimes doesn't get thought about so much is, and how are we going to know that it's doing what we need it to do? How are we going to know that it's actually giving us value, that it's saving us time? And it's often that piece of work that doesn't happen, and then it's harder to prove the value of Verto to an organisation and say, look, actually, it's saving us this much time, it's helping you do this, it's allowing us to do this, we really wanted to be here, and that's where we are. So this assessment allows us to actually start the client thinking about, this is where we want to get to. We know where we are right now. Often all of that work doesn't happen. They don't know exactly where they are. They just know they want to get a bit better.
Yeah.
But this allows them to step back and say, right, so we're here, honestly. And I think that's a really important thing to mention, actually. It has to be an honest assessment of the capabilities, because what we want to do is genuinely help you rise.
Yeah.
But we're not going to be able to do that unless we know that, it's exactly where you are right now. Because we can then provide support and say, look, we think that this is the best way to get you there. We think if you do this first, this is going to help you achieve that. So it allows us to be just that bit more consultative with you and understand your needs and allow us to put our expertise. We've been doing this for a long time. We've worked with a lot of clients. We understand how to get the best out of the system to meet your needs.
Yeah.
But this really helps us to do that.
Yeah, we're invested in their success. That's ultimately what it comes down to. And I think, as you were asking there, it should be comforting for them that there are people behind there that are driving and pushing it.
Absolutely.
So I talk a lot about accountability. Like, we want to be accountable for them succeeding, but also the clients themselves need to be accountable for their own success. We've got to meet in the middle, and that's the partnership. No? I think it's a fairly simple concept, but it's an important one.
Yeah.
So figure out where you are, figure out where you want to get to, and let's help you get there.
Yeah. I think that sounds fantastic. But anyway, on that note, I just want to say thank you both for joining me today. I think we've had a really useful conversations, talked about client success in great detail. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much.